The airport was a screaming chaos of hurried footsteps and flickering departure boards. But all Sarah could hear was the ragged breathing of the old man crumpled on the floor. His trembling hands clutched a faded army cap, and his eyes clouded with panic locked onto hers, pleading for something she wasn't sure she could give. She was seconds from boarding her flight to Seattle, her new life waiting, when she dropped her backpack and knelt beside him. Sarah Bennett, 28, had spent months planning her escape from the suffocating small town of Redding, California. A graphic designer with a sharp wit and a heart too big for her own good, she'd landed a dream job at a tech startup. Her boarding pass was clutched tightly in her hand, the gate just steps away, but the old man's labored gasps anchored her to the spot. "Sir, are you okay?" she asked, her voice steady despite the adrenaline spiking through her. Around her, travelers streamed by, indifferent, their suitcases rattling like a drumbeat of urgency. The man's name was Harold, a Vietnam War veteran, as she'd learn later. His weathered face told stories his trembling lips couldn't decades of battles fought, both on foreign soil and within himself. "My pills," he rasped, pointing weakly to a spilled bottle of medication rolling across the tiled floor. Sarah scrambled to retrieve them, her fingers brushing against the cold tile as she scooped up the tiny white capsules. She pressed one into his palm, her own heart racing as she glanced at the gate. The final boarding call blared over the intercom. "Miss, you need to board now," a gate agent called, her tone clipped. Sarah's eyes darted between Harold, struggling to sit up, and the gate, where the last passengers were disappearing. Her new life freedom, opportunity, a chance to finally live openly as herself was slipping away. But Harold's hand gripped hers, frail but desperate, and she couldn't leave him. "Not like this." She waved off the agent. "I'm staying," she said, her voice firm but trembling with the weight of her choice. The agent shrugged and closed the gate. Sarah's flight to Seattle took off without her, carrying her dreams across the country. She didn't know it yet, but that moment would unravel everything she thought she knew about love, courage, and what it meant to be human. As Sarah helped Harold to a bench, a young woman approached, her long black hair swaying as she moved with quiet confidence. "Is he okay?" she asked, her voice soft but laced with concern. Sarah looked up, meeting eyes so deep and warm they seemed to hold a universe of their own. The woman, who introduced herself as Lena, was 27, a freelance photographer with a gentle smile and a backpack slung over one shoulder. Her presence was like a calm in the storm of the terminal, and Sarah felt an inexplicable pull toward her. Lena knelt beside them, pulling a water bottle from her bag and offering it to Harold. "I saw what you did," she said to Sarah, her gaze steady. Most people would have kept walking. Sarah flushed, brushing off the compliment. "I just did what anyone would." But Lena's smile said she knew better. Together, they stayed with Harold, waiting for paramedics. He told them fragments of his story, how he'd been flying to visit his estranged daughter, how his heart condition had worsened, how he'd been alone for years. Sarah listened, her hand resting on his arm, while Lena's quiet strength grounded them both. The paramedics arrived, efficient and kind, and assured them Harold would be okay. As they wheeled him away, he grabbed Sarah's hand. "You're a good one," he whispered. "Don't let the world change that." Sarah stood, her chest tight with a mix of relief and loss. Her phone buzzed a text from her best friend in Seattle, asking if she'd landed. She stared at the screen, the weight of her missed flight sinking in. "What now?" she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. Lena, still beside her, tilted her head. "You missed your flight for him, didn't you?" Sarah nodded, her throat tight. "Yeah." Dumb move. Probably. Lena's laugh was soft, like wind chimes on a summer evening. Or brave. Depends on how you look at it. Before Sarah could respond, a piercing alarm shattered the air. The terminal's lights flickered, and a voice boomed over the intercom. Attention, all passengers. Due to a security threat, this airport is now under lockdown. Please remain calm and follow instructions. Sarah's stomach dropped. She locked eyes with Lena, whose calm facade cracked just enough to show a flicker of fear. The crowd around them erupted into murmurs, then shouts, as security guards appeared, ushering people toward exits that were quickly sealed. Sarah's missed flight was no longer her biggest problem. Something far bigger was unfolding, and she and Lena were now bound together in its chaos. The terminal became a pressure cooker of panic and confusion. Sarah and Lena found a corner near a coffee shop, its neon sign flickering ominously. What the hell is happening? Sarah whispered, her eyes scanning the crowd. Lena's hand brushed against hers, a fleeting touch that sent a jolt through Sarah's veins. Whatever it is, Lena said, her voice steady despite the chaos. We'll figure it out together. Sarah didn't know why those words felt like a lifeline, but they did. She nodded, her heart pounding not just from the lockdown, but from the woman standing beside her, whose presence was already rewriting the story she thought she was here to live. The airport's lockdown stretched into hours. The terminal a claustrophobic maze of stranded travelers and unanswered questions. Sarah and Lena sat cross-legged on the floor, their backs against a cold glass wall, sharing a stale granola bar from Lena's backpack. The flickering overhead lights cast shadows across Lena's face, highlighting the sharp curve of her jaw and the quiet intensity in her eyes. Sarah couldn't stop stealing glances at her. There was something about Lena's steady calm, the way she seemed to see through the chaos to the core of things that made Sarah's chest ache in a way she hadn't felt in years. So, Sarah said, breaking the silence, what's your deal? Why were you at this airport? Lena's lips curved into a half-smile. I was supposed to fly to New York for a photography gig. Portraits for a magazine. But honestly, I'm not that bummed about missing it. She paused, her eyes locking onto Sarah's. I think I was meant to be here. Sarah's breath caught. She wanted to brush it off, to laugh and change the subject. But Lena's words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Instead, she deflected. You always this poetic with strangers. Lena laughed, a sound that cut through the tension like sunlight. Only the ones who miss flights to help old men. Sarah rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her smile. For a moment, the chaos of the lockdown faded, and it was just them, two strangers sharing a fleeting connection in a world gone mad. But the world wasn't done with them. A security guard approached, his face stern. You two need to move to the designated safe area. Now. His tone left no room for argument. Sarah and Lena grabbed their bags and joined the herd of passengers being funneled toward a cordoned-off section of the terminal. Whispers of bomb threat and suspicious package rippled through the crowd, each rumor more unsettling than the last. As they shuffled along, Lena's hand brushed Sarah's again, this time lingering a moment longer. Sarah's pulse quickened, but she didn't pull away. This is insane, she muttered, her eyes scanning the tense faces around them. What if it's real? What if we're stuck here for days? Lena's voice was steady. Then we make the best of it. We're alive, aren't we? Sarah wanted to believe her, but the weight of the unknown pressed down hard. She'd already lost her flight, her fresh start. Now she was trapped in an airport with a stranger who made her feel things she wasn't ready to name. The safe area was a cavernous lounge packed with people, their voices a low hum of anxiety. Sarah and Lena found a spot near a window, the glass cool against their shoulders. Outside, police lights flashed in the distance, a stark reminder of the threat looming over them. Sarah's phone buzzed again, another text from her friend in Seattle. Now worried. She typed a quick reply, stuck in lockdown. I'm okay. We'll explain later. Lena noticed her tension. Someone waiting for you in Seattle? She asked, her tone casual but curious. Sarah hesitated, then shook her head. Just a friend. And a job. A new life, I guess. She didn't mention the deeper truth, that Seattle was her chance to finally live openly as a lesbian, to leave behind the judgment of her conservative hometown. She wasn't sure why she held back, maybe because saying it out loud felt too raw, too vulnerable. Lena didn't push. Instead, she pulled out her camera, a battered Nikon that looked like it had seen the world. Mind if I take a photo? She asked, her eyes soft but mischievous. Sarah blinked, caught off guard. Of me? Now? I look like a mess. You look real, Lena said simply. Before Sarah could protest, Lena snapped a shot. The cameras click, a quiet rebellion against the chaos around them. She turned the screen to show Sarah the photo, her face, tired but fierce, framed by the airport's harsh lights. See? You're beautiful. Sarah's cheeks burned. She wasn't used to compliments, especially not from someone like Lena, whose sincerity felt like a spotlight. You're ridiculous, she mumbled, but her heart was racing. For the first time since missing her flight, she felt something other than regret, a spark of something alive, something dangerous. The moment was shattered by a loud crackle from the intercom. Attention, passengers. The lockdown will continue until further notice. Please remain in designated areas. Groans erupted around them, but Sarah barely heard. She was too focused on Lena, who was now scrolling through her camera, showing Sarah photos from her travels, desert sunsets, city streets, faces full of stories. Each image was a window into Lena's world, and Sarah found herself wanting to step through. As the night wore on, they talked about their lives, their dreams, the things they'd left behind. Sarah learned that Lena had grown up in Chicago, raised by a single mom who taught her to see beauty in the broken. Lena spoke of her photography with a passion that made Sarah's heart ache. And when she asked Sarah about her art, Sarah found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected. She talked about her designs, her love for bold colors, the way creating made her feel free. She didn't mention Redding's small-mindedness, but Lena seemed to sense it, her eyes softening with understanding. By midnight, the terminal was a strange limbo of exhaustion and tension. Some passengers slept on the floor, others paced restlessly. Sarah and Lena stayed close, their shoulders brushing as they shared stories and silences. When Lena's hand found Sarah's again, this time intentionally, Sarah didn't pull away. The touch was electric, a quiet promise in the midst of uncertainty. But the lockdown wasn't just a backdrop, it was a pressure cooker, and something was about to give. As Sarah leaned closer to Lena, a commotion broke out across the lounge. Raised voices, a scuffle, then a scream. Sarah's head snapped up, her heart pounding. What now? She whispered, gripping Lena's hand tighter. Lena's eyes narrowed, scanning the crowd. Something's wrong, she said, her voice low. Stay close. Sarah nodded, her pulse racing as they stood, ready to face whatever the night would throw at them next. The scream cut through the terminal like a blade, sharp and jarring. Sarah's grip on Lena's hand tightened as they pushed through the crowd, drawn toward the commotion like moths to a flame. At the center of the lounge, two men were shouting, their faces red with anger, while a security guard tried to separate them. A woman nearby clutched her child, her eyes wide with fear. "What's happening?" Sarah asked, her voice barely audible over the chaos. Lena's jaw was set, her eyes scanning the scene. "Looks like tempers are fraying," she said. "People are scared. Trapped. It's a powder keg." The guard's radio crackled, spitting out garbled orders. Sarah caught fragments: "suspicious individual," "possible threat," and her stomach twisted. The lockdown had been vague, the threat undefined, and now it was unraveling the fragile civility of the crowd. She glanced at Lena, whose calm exterior was starting to crack, her fingers twitching around her camera. "We should stay out of it," Sarah said, but even as she spoke, she felt the pull to do something, anything, to ease the tension. Lena nodded but didn't move, her eyes locked on a young woman standing alone near the edge of the crowd. She was trembling, her hands twisting the straps of her backpack, her face pale. "She's scared," Lena said softly. "Come on." Before Sarah could protest, Lena was moving toward the woman, her steps sure but gentle. Sarah followed, her heart pounding not just from the chaos, but from the way Lena seemed to navigate it with such quiet courage. The woman, who looked barely 20, flinched as they approached. "Hey," Lena said, her voice soft. "You okay?" The woman shook her head, tears welling. "I'm alone," she whispered. "My family's in Denver. I don't know what's happening." Sarah's chest ached. She knew that kind of loneliness, the kind that made the world feel too big and too small all at once. "I'm Sarah," she said, kneeling beside her. "This is Lena. We're stuck here too. What's your name?" "Emma," the woman said, her voice shaky. Sarah offered a small smile. "Okay, Emma. Stick with us. We'll figure this out together." Emma nodded, her shoulders relaxing slightly, and Sarah felt a surge of purpose. She'd missed her flight to help Harold, and now here she was, anchoring someone else in the storm. Lena's hand brushed Sarah's shoulder, a quiet gesture of gratitude. "You're good at this," she murmured, and Sarah's cheeks warmed. She wanted to say something witty, to deflect the intensity of Lena's gaze, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she just nodded, her heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with the lockdown. The three of them found a quieter corner, away from the shouting men and the nervous crowd. Emma told them she was a college student, flying home for a family emergency. Her vulnerability was raw, and Sarah found herself slipping into the role of protector, just as she had with Harold. Lena, meanwhile, was a steady presence, her calm balancing Sarah's restless energy. As they talked, Sarah learned more about Lena's life, her love for capturing fleeting moments, her dream of opening a gallery, the way she'd always felt like an outsider, even in her own family. "They never got me," Lena said, her voice quiet. "Always wanted me to be someone else. Someone straighter, I guess." She laughed, but there was pain beneath it. Sarah's heart skipped. She wanted to ask more, to know everything, but the words felt too big for the moment. Instead, she shared her own story growing up in Reading, hiding who she was, the weight of living half a life. "Seattle was supposed to be my fresh start," she said, her voice breaking. "No more pretending." Lena's eyes softened. "You don't have to pretend with me," she said, and the words landed like a promise. Sarah's breath hitched, the air between them charged with something unspoken. For a moment, the lockdown, the chaos, the fear, it all faded. There was only Lena, her gaze steady and warm, and the possibility of something Sarah had never dared to hope for. But reality crashed back in. A new announcement blared: "All passengers, prepare for security screening. Have your ID and belongings ready." The crowd surged, and Sarah, Lena, and Emma were swept into a line that snaked through the lounge. Security guards barked orders, their faces tense, and Sarah's unease grew. Something about the lockdown felt wrong, too vague, too urgent. As they waited, Lena's hand found Sarah's again, her fingers lacing through hers. The touch was grounding, a reminder that they weren't alone. But as they reached the front of the line, a guard singled out Emma, his eyes narrowing at her backpack. "Step aside," he said, his tone sharp. Emma froze, her face paling. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked, stepping forward. The guard's gaze flicked to her, cold and unyielding. "Routine check," he said, but his hand rested on his radio, and Sarah's instincts screamed that this was more than routine. Lena's grip on Sarah's hand tightened. "Stay calm," she whispered, but her voice was edged with worry. Emma's hands shook as she opened her backpack, revealing nothing but books and a laptop. The guard rummaged through it, his movements rough, and Sarah's anger flared. "She's just a kid," she said, her voice sharp. "Ease up." The guard's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, another officer called him away. Emma sagged with relief, but Sarah's heart was still racing. "This isn't right," she muttered to Lena. "Something's off." Lena nodded, her expression grim. "I know. But we need to stick together." She glanced at Emma, then back at Sarah, her eyes fierce. "No matter what happens, we've got each other's backs." Sarah nodded, her throat tight. She didn't know what was coming, but with Lena's hand in hers and Emma by their side, she felt a strength she hadn't known she had. The lockdown was a crucible, forging something new between them, something that might just change everything. The security screening dragged on, each passenger's bag dissected with cold precision. Sarah stood close to Lena and Emma, her eyes darting between the guards and the restless crowd. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made your skin prickle and your chest tight. Lena's hand stayed in hers, a quiet anchor, but Sarah could feel the tremor in her fingers. They were all on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Emma clutched her backpack, her face still pale from the guard's scrutiny. "Why did they single me out?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Sarah squeezed her shoulder. "They're just scared, like everyone else. You didn't do anything wrong." But her words felt hollow. The lockdown's vague security threat was starting to feel like a cover for something bigger, something no one was saying. Lena's eyes narrowed as she watched the guards. "They're looking for someone," she said, her voice low. "Or something. This isn't random." Sarah nodded, her mind racing. She'd always trusted her instincts, and right now, they were screaming that the truth was being buried under layers of protocol and fear. As the line inched forward, Sarah caught snippets of conversation from other passengers, rumors of a specific suspect, a bag left unattended, even whispers of terrorism. None of it added up, but it fueled the crowd's unease. A man nearby started shouting at a guard, demanding answers, and the tension spiked again. Sarah's heart pounded, but Lena's calm voice cut through. "Focus on us," she said, her thumb brushing Sarah's knuckles. "We're okay." Sarah wanted to believe her, but the weight of the day missing her flight, helping Harold, now this was crashing down. She looked at Lena, her dark eyes steady despite the chaos, and felt a surge of something she couldn't name. "Not yet." "You're too calm," she said, half joking. "It's freaking me out." Lena's smile was small but real. "Someone's got to keep it together." She paused, her gaze softening. "And I'm glad it's me. For you." Sarah's breath caught, the words hitting deeper than they should have. She wanted to lean into them, to let herself fall, but the world around them wouldn't allow it. The screening finally ended, and the three of them were cleared to return to the lounge. But the atmosphere had shifted darker, heavier. The guards were everywhere now, their radios crackling with urgency. Sarah, Lena, and Emma found a spot near a shuttered food court, sitting in a tight circle like survivors of a shipwreck. Emma was quieter now, her eyes distant, and Sarah's heart ached for her. She remembered being that young, that scared, carrying the weight of a world that didn't understand her. Lena pulled out her camera again, this time showing Emma some of her photos. "This is my favorite," she said, pointing to a shot of a woman laughing in the rain, her face alive with joy. She was homeless, but she had this light. "I want to capture that in everyone." Emma's eyes softened, a flicker of hope breaking through her fear. Sarah watched Lena, marveling at how she could find beauty in the midst of this mess. "You're kind of amazing," Sarah said before she could stop herself. Lena's head snapped up, her cheeks flushing. "Says the woman who missed her flight to help a stranger," she shot back, her tone playful but her eyes serious. Emma giggled, the first real smile Sarah had seen from her, and for a moment, they were just three people finding solace in each other. But the moment didn't last. A new announcement crackled through the terminal: "All passengers, remain in place. A suspect has been identified." The words sent a chill through Sarah. The crowd hushed, then erupted into whispers. Lena's hand found Sarah's again, her grip tight. "This is it," she murmured. "Whatever's happening, it's coming to a head." Sarah's mind raced. She thought of Harold, safe now in a hospital bed, and wondered if her choice to stay had set all of this in motion. If she'd boarded her flight, would she be in Seattle, starting her new life? Or was this Lena, Emma, this strange, terrifying moment where she was meant to be? As the guards moved through the lounge, their eyes sharp and searching, Sarah noticed a man sitting alone, his hood pulled low, his hands fidgeting. Something about him felt off, too still, too aware. She nudged Lena, nodding subtly toward him. "You see that guy?" she whispered. Lena's eyes followed, narrowing. "Yeah. He's wrong." Before they could say more, the man stood, his movements jerky, and started toward the edge of the lounge. A guard shouted, and the crowd parted, panic rippling outward. Sarah's heart pounded as she pulled Emma closer, shielding her. Lena's camera was still in her hands, and in a split-second decision, she raised it, snapping a photo of the man as he moved. The flash caught his attention, and his head whipped toward them. His eyes cold, calculating, locked onto Lena's, and Sarah's blood ran cold. "Lena," she hissed, grabbing her arm. "Put it down." But Lena's jaw was set, her camera still raised, capturing the moment like it was evidence. The man took a step toward them, then another. The guards were closing in, their shouts growing louder, but Sarah's world narrowed to the space between her, Lena, and Emma. She didn't know what was coming, but she knew one thing: she wasn't letting go of either of them. The man's eyes burned into Lena's, his steps deliberate as he closed the distance. Sarah's heart thundered, her body instinctively stepping in front of Lena and Emma, shielding them. The guards were shouting now, their voices a chaotic blur, but the man's focus was locked on Lena's camera, as if her single snapshot had unraveled something he'd meant to keep hidden. "Lena, stop," Sarah whispered, her voice urgent. But Lena's hands were steady, her camera clicking one final time before she lowered it. The man froze, his face twisting with something between fear and rage. Before he could move closer, two guards tackled him, pinning him to the ground. The crowd gasped, some screaming, as the terminal erupted into chaos. Sarah pulled Lena and Emma back, her arms around them both. "Stay with me," she said, her voice shaking but firm. Emma was trembling, her eyes wide, but Lena's gaze was still fixed on the man, now being cuffed and dragged away. "I got his face," Lena said, her voice low, almost triumphant. "Whatever he was planning, they've got him now." The announcement came minutes later, the intercom crackling with relief. "The threat has been neutralized. The lockdown is lifted. Please proceed to the nearest information desk for rebooking." The crowd exhaled as one, a wave of exhausted relief washing over the terminal. But Sarah's heart was still racing, her mind replaying the man's eyes, Lena's defiance, the way her own body had moved to protect them without hesitation. They made their way to the information desk, the three of them still tethered by an unspoken bond. Emma clung to Sarah's arm, her fears slowly giving way to gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what I would have done without you guys." Sarah squeezed her hand, her throat tight. "You're okay now. You're going home." Lena was quieter, her camera now tucked away, her eyes distant. Sarah nudged her. "You okay?" Lena nodded, but her smile was strained. I saw something in him. Something dark. I couldn't let it go." Sarah understood Lena's need to capture truth, to hold it up to the light. It was the same instinct that had made Sarah stay with Harold, the same pull that kept her here now, with Lena. As they waited in line to rebook their flights, Sarah's phone buzzed again. Her friend in Seattle, frantic now, demanding answers. Sarah typed a quick reply, "Missed flight. Helped someone. Met someone. I'll call soon." She didn't mention Lena by name, but the words "met someone" felt like a confession, a truth she was only beginning to understand. Lena's flight to New York was rebooked for the next morning, and Sarah's to Seattle was scheduled just an hour later. Emma's flight to Denver was first, and when she hugged them goodbye, her eyes were wet. "You're like my heroes," she said, her voice breaking. Sarah laughed, brushing it off, but Lena's arm around her waist felt like a quiet agreement. With Emma gone, Sarah and Lena found a quiet corner to wait out the night. The terminal was calmer now, the chaos replaced by a weary hum of conversations and rolling suitcases. They sat close, their shoulders touching, the weight of the day settling between them. "I'm glad I missed my flight," Sarah said suddenly, the words spilling out before she could stop them. Lena turned, her eyes searching Sarah's face. "Yeah?" she asked, her voice soft. Sarah nodded, her heart pounding. "Yeah. Because of you." Lena's smile was slow, radiant, like dawn breaking over a long night. "I was thinking the same thing," she said. And then, in a moment that felt both inevitable and terrifying, she leaned in, her lips brushing Sarah's in a kiss that was soft, tentative, but electric. Sarah's breath caught, her hands finding Lena's face, pulling her closer. The world, the airport, the lockdown, the fear fell away, leaving only the warmth of Lena's touch, the promise of something new. When they pulled back, Sarah's cheeks were flushed, her heart racing. "What now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Lena's hand found hers, their fingers lacing together. "We figure it out," she said. "Together." The next morning, they boarded their separate flights, but not before exchanging numbers and a promise to meet again. Sarah's plane took off, the view of the clouds both a farewell and a beginning. She thought of Harold, of Emma, of the man in the hodan of Lena, whose kiss still lingered on her lips. Missing her flight had cost her a job, a fresh start, but it had given her something more, a reminder that courage, connection, and love could bloom in the most unexpected places. As the plane soared, Sarah closed her eyes, her heart full. She'd missed her flight to help a veteran, and then the airport had locked down, throwing her into a whirlwind of fear and hope. But in the end, it wasn't the chaos that defined her, it was the people she'd chosen to stand with, and the woman who'd shown her that sometimes the greatest journeys begin with a single, selfless act.